On May 23, 2017, what was supposed to be a quick capture operation turned into the longest and most destructive urban battle in modern Philippine history. The city of Marawi, located on the southern island of Mindanao, became a war zone overnight. It started when government forces moved in to arrest Isnilan Hapilon, the so-called emir of ISIS in Southeast Asia. What they didn't know was that he wasn't alone. Hapilon had joined forces with the Maute group, another ISIS-aligned militant faction, and together they had spent months stockpiling weapons, recruiting fighters, and planning to seize control of the city. When Philippine troops arrived, they walked into a trap. Hundreds of militants emerged from buildings, snipers took positions in mosques and high-rises, and the city's narrow streets turned into kill zones. What was supposed to be a targeted raid escalated into a full-blown insurgency. Within hours, black ISIS flags were flying over buildings in downtown Marawi. The militants captured hostages, looted banks, and destroyed government buildings. Using civilians as human shields, they slowed the military's response and fortified their positions throughout the city. Armed with high-powered rifles, rocket-propelled grenades, and improvised explosives, they transformed the dense urban environment into a maze of ambushes and booby traps. What followed was a brutal 5-month battle to retake the city, street by street, building by building. The Philippine Armed Forces launched an aggressive counteroffensive, but they were fighting an enemy that had every advantage in urban terrain. Snipers would shoot from behind walls, and entire buildings were rigged to collapse. It became clear that this wasn't a ragtag insurgency. This was a well-armed, highly coordinated force, many of whom had trained abroad or fought in Syria and Iraq. As the siege wore on, the humanitarian toll deepened. Entire families were trapped behind enemy lines with little access to food, water, or medicine. Some civilians were forced to act as couriers or human shields by the militants. Others were simply caught in the crossfire. Aid organizations struggled to reach the city, and evacuation corridors were often targeted or blocked. For the 350,000 people displaced from Marawi, life became a cycle of uncertainty, displacement camps, and destroyed homes. What had once been a thriving, culturally rich city was now unrecognizable, reduced to smoldering ruins and silence, broken only by the sounds of gunfire and distant explosions. As weeks dragged on, the government began deploying heavier firepower, tanks, armored vehicles, and airstrikes, leveling entire blocks of the city to dislodge the militants. The streets of Marawi became unrecognizable. Whole neighborhoods were reduced to rubble. The military faced criticism for the level of destruction, but commanders insisted there was no other way to root out the entrenched fighters. Urban warfare in Marawi became a deadly test of endurance, patience, and adaptation. Soldiers had to relearn how to fight in dense urban zones, clearing buildings room by room, avoiding sniper fire, and protecting civilians wherever possible. At times, the front line shifted by mere meters each day. The intensity of the conflict brought in elite counter-terrorism units, snipers, drone operators, and psychological operations teams. Every corner, every basement, every rooftop was a potential trap. The tide finally began to turn in October. Government forces killed both Isnilan Hapilon and Omar Maute in a precision operation that decapitated the leadership of the resistance. With their commanders dead and their ranks depleted, the remaining militants either surrendered or fought to the death. On October 23rd, exactly 5 months after the siege began, the Philippine government declared Marawi liberated. But the cost was staggering. Over 1,200 people had been killed, including nearly 100 government troops and more than 40 civilians. The rest of the deaths, nearly 1,000, belonged to the militants. At least 350,000 residents were displaced. Much of the city lay in ruins. The Battle of Marawi was over, but the scars it left, both physical and psychological, would last for years. The siege of Marawi marked a turning point in Southeast Asia's fight against extremism. It was proof that ISIS ideology had spread far beyond the Middle East, and that urban centers in even distant corners of the world could become battlegrounds in the war on terror. For the Philippine military, it was a wake-up call that forced modernization, tactical evolution, and a reconsideration of counter-terror strategy. For those who lived through it, it was something else entirely. A nightmare of airstrikes, gunfire, and uncertainty that tore through their homes and families. The battle showed what happens when ideology, firepower, and strategic miscalculations collide in the heart of a civilian city. It was, in every way, a modern siege, and it changed the region forever. Subscribe to Military Briefs for more untold stories, tactical breakdowns, and declassified military history.